that. Go ahead.
All right, so which way? Right?
Yes.
Is this- Nope, okay, it's there. All right, so anything y'all want to talk about before we start these case studies?
Well, yeah.
How much time we got?
Couple things.
We got 25, 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah, you got until like retail, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah, a couple of things real quick. Number one, we didn't have to make any of it up.
Sadly.
That's a fact.
Sadly.
That's a fact.
So is there a chance that something maybe that was your problem is up here? Yes, it could be. I don't know. I can't remember where it was. So we're not in the Church of Keller Williams, so you don't have to stand up and testify when it's yours. You know, just don't say anything. Just let it go. We changed a couple of the facts, kind of make it a little more, general and not too specific to any one person. And the other thing is, there's no problem with you asking questions on it. That's great. But please don't ask any what if questions. Right? Don't ask any what if somebody says, but what if, we will say, we're not answering that. Not because we're mean and bad, but because what happens is somebody sees the question, the message goes off, they look, we answer the question, you ask your what if question, they look back up and hear our answer. And it's not to the question at hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we don't do any what ifs on this. But anyway, with that being said, like I said, ask questions. We'll tell you about a couple of them. Let's start and see what we have
This
here.
first one belongs to Marcy. Go ahead.
That's me.
Third off.
They're all mine.
That's about
Yeah.
it.
No, can people read that?
I read it.
Yeah.
You represent a buyer, the BBA states you get 3% compensation. However, the listing agent lets you know they are sharing 2.5%. You attach the buyer's broker compensation agreement stating the seller's broker will be paying 3%. Is there a problem? You got a BBA that says 3%, the listing agent says we're only doing 2.5%. Then you ask the listing.
You put the 259 in there, yeah.
That 3% from the listing broker.
Is there a problem with that?
No, it's not.
That's what we're talking about.
Well, not necessarily.
It is a tricky question, y'all. That's why I pointed it out
Is
to
it
you.
the wrong form?
No, it's the right
sir.
form.
You can always ask, right, as part of the offer when you.
That's-
Here's the problem.
That's-
All right,
that's
here's
the
the
problem.
problem with this. They let you know they're paying 2.5%. You send a 259 over there, asking them to pay 3. You've now asked them to change their commission. You can't do that,
So what's that? That's against the code of ethics, right?
right?
You're asking another broker to change their compensation.
And if they actually push it, they could actually take it to GREC and say that you've actually interfered with the listing agreement.
Why is
What
that?
those numbers are. So here's the deal. You can't, like I said, you can't ask somebody else to change this. What you do is, when they say, hey, yeah, we're paying 2.5%, but if you want 3, which by the way, remember, up until April of last year, when they offered 2.5, everybody took 2.5. Anyway, so what you do is, you say, yeah, 2.5 from the listing broker and 0.5% from the seller.
Remember that form's got two options on it,
Yeah.
A and B. A says coming from the listing broker. B says coming from the seller. It's okay to ask the seller to pay that 0.5%, not the listing broker. Because you're not enticing that listing broker to change his compensation that he's already agreed to. If you do that, you're breaking that. That makes sense? Yes, sir, David.
So in absence of any communication as to what they're offering, should we just put whatever our set commission is or compensation as from the seller on that form?
That's correct. If you don't know, if the listing broker hadn't told you or sent you anything about what they're offering and you use that 259, you have to ask from the seller. You just assume there is no broker compensation coming from the listing broker. So you asked it from the seller, if that's what your buyer has directed you to do. And then if it's coming from the listing broker, they'll have to counter that. and
Correct.
Back and correct it. That's exactly right.
But you would send that for the seller to pay it instead of the,
You have to ask the
Share it.
seller. Yeah, if the listing broker hadn't told you that they're sharing it.
because you don't want to change their
Right.
agreement. Okay,
You just got to assume there is nothing, so you have to get it from the seller.
What kind of response are you guys getting from the listing agent and providing you with the 258, the pre-showing agreement?
Like pulling teeth.
Yeah, I ask for it every time and I get it about 10% of the time.
Yeah.
But what I do get is
One more.
a text or an email saying that's what they're paying. So I put it in the contract, but with what they told me.
Yeah. And it's funny because like on the forms committee, there are a lot of people who were like, why do we even have the 258? Let's just get rid of it. And everybody outside of Metro Atlanta lost their mind, you know, because agents kind of outside Metro Atlanta, their listing agents are responding, they're sending the pre-listing agreement, which clearly says, we're offering this and this is how it's being paid. Here, our agents don't seem to be doing it in Metro Atlanta.
Why are you seeing that? I mean, what's the deal with them not sending it? Is that just laziness or?
I'm just gonna say, just sit in a forms committee meeting, that's all.
Yeah.
It's just like you said, remember when everybody freaked out because, oh, I gotta answer the phone? In the beginning, when everything started changing, it's just.
They don't want to do it.
Just lazy.
They don't want to do it. So I think the important thing here is, because we're not getting that pre-showing. If agents were sending the pre-showing, that would be wonderful. Because you would clearly know what the selling side is offering and how they're paying it. And then you know what you're gonna do. You can sign off on that, you're good. You wouldn't even need the 259 in the contract for that. But I think when you're on the phone with that agent, because you're saying they're not sending the form, but they're talking to you, they're telling you, make sure we're asking those two questions. Everybody's asking how much. Well, let's make sure we're asking who's paying it. That way, when you do your 259, you're gonna do it fine and you're not gonna come across, you're not gonna ask the listing broker for 3 if their listing agreement says we're paying you 2.5%, we're not gonna ask them for anything. Asking the seller for it is fine, because we're not trying to make the seller change.
So
their
to be
agreement with
clear,
their
if we don't
listing
get a
broker.
response at all, we need to ask for the seller to pay
Seller,
it.
absolutely.
Period, not, okay, that's good to know.
And then if their listing agreement says, no, they're sharing it.
Yeah, they'll change
They'll
it.
change it and counter back.
The seller will have them corrected.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
But if you are the listing agent and a buyer sends that over to you and you already got, just say 6% with the seller, and then you let him sign that contract that says he agrees to pay an additional 3%, that means that's a total of 9% that seller owes. So pay attention. Don't get caught up in the bad triangle.
Well, I send the 258, so.
That's the easiest. But do this too. If you get an agent, hey, how much a co-op y'all offer? Well, we offering 3%. And you don't put that in writing somewhere, what's your guarantee to get paid? Nothing. So don't be foolish like that either. But you can't, unfortunately, you can't trust anybody. Oh, I didn't tell you 3, I only told you 2. What you gonna do? His word against my word, right? So just don't put yourself in that situation, then you don't have to worry about it. Always put it in writing somehow.
Yeah, I wouldn't do an offer, if I'm representing the buyer, I wouldn't do an offer without a 259, period.
Yeah.
I don't care if Jesus is on the other side, it's getting a 259 in it.
Yeah.
That's the only way to
I thought
protect
that
it.
was,
I'm just telling you.
isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Well,
Are you guys hot? Are you guys hot out there?
all right.
What if we turn that's a what if question. Turn the thermostat down. It's about 200
Amy.
You want
200
to?
degrees. Is it hot?
It's very.
All right, so let's look at this one up. The second one here, you are the listing agent and an unrepresented buyer makes an offer on the home. The offer is accepted, so you're on both sides, right? You have a client, you have a customer. The buyer schedules an inspection and you meet the inspector at the home. About 30 minutes into the inspection, you leave and the inspector stays an additional 2 hours. The seller's furious that you did not stay. Did you do anything wrong? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
3 yeses and 18, huh?
How many of y'all do this every day, though? I know none of y'all stay at that inspection for 3 hours, do you?
I do, so.
Good.
Because you give them sugar loaf, that's right.
Got nothing to do.
Oh, that's cold.
Yeah, we had this one happen on a, what, $1.5 or $2 million home.
Stay.
And the seller is furious.
Think about it.
They are, yes.
Inspectors are what? Inspectors, right?
Yeah, they,
Yeah.
yeah.
If your buyer's there with that inspector and that buyer doesn't have a client relationship, right? Who's representing that buyer? You're supposed to be there. But how many of y'all don't stay? Marcy, she never stays.
I have a question there. So was the buyer left with the inspector?
The inspector was there by themselves.
Inspector was by himself.
The buyer actually did come later, but I don't think it even matters.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get clear. The seller was upset that the inspector was left in the home.
Mhm. Yeah, I would never, there needs to be an agent in the home if somebody's in the home, period.
Here, that's what that seller's paying you for. right?
The
So the
hottest
question-
person I've dealt with this year so far has been a couple that okayed a home inspection for their home in the Sellers, and they went somewhere, they left. They came back when they were supposed to come back, and they couldn't get to their house. And she was disabled, so she had a mobility issue. They had to park 5 houses down because the buyer had taken this opportunity to let her mom, her dad, her sister, her brother. That woman walked in the house and there were 14 people.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all.
6 of them were kids.
Wow.
And the agent had just got there because the inspector said, just show up at the end and we'll kind of go over everything. That woman was there for like 1.5 hours and had a parade of people through their home.
And can I add one thing to that? So this just happened this week. I got a text from 2 different agents where they have a listing and the home got shown, not by our agent, that was our listing. There are cameras in all of these houses. Please, for the love of Mary, do not talk bad about anything in the home. I don't care if there are dog turds in the floor, if they have 50 litter boxes, because I promise you, they will share that with everybody, and it is not a good look. So just be very mindful that somebody, I promise you, is always watching.
And the funny one too with this one is the agent, like I said, ended up with both sides, right? Plus the buyer was selling their house and the agent. So we've got 3 sides on this, and that agent's gonna give away somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 just because that agent didn't stay in the house, and it infuriated the seller. So the seller is finding everything wrong all the time, no matter what, where the seller was very cool beforehand. That's an expensive mistake,
Let's back up for a
but
minute.
not the cheapest one ever.
Yeah, let's back up a minute and talk about this right here again. You know, about the leaving it blank. You know,
Let's do it later.
You wanna do that
I think
later?
we got one we can talk about later. Yeah.
all right, this one says, you represent the buyer on a home that is under contract. The husband and wife owners will be getting divorced after the sale. 2 weeks before closing, the wife serves the husband with divorce papers, and now the husband says he will not close. What has changed, and can he refuse to close because of the divorce?
Divorces are ugly,
Lately.
at least I've heard, mostly from my attorney, but don't do that, you idiot. Just get me out, dude. That's all I'm asking. But the thing is, divorces are ugly. Even amicable divorces are ugly. Because money will sneak out. And so if you have some people that are going to get divorced, they really, 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 really need to be preached to about, look, if you're going to, fine, but you can't do it while this house is under contract. Let's wait till it closes and be done with it. And like I said, 2 weeks before closing, I think it was 2 weeks before closing. The wife served the guy and he said, I'm not closing. Well, look, he's under contract. There is no court order in the divorce yet. So they're still under contract to go. Then you gotta figure out if by chance there's a judgment before it closes, now what? How does that judgment affect the closing? Will it affect the closing? And so be very careful about that. And I will tell you now that if people are in the middle of a divorce, they're already in the middle of it, they want to sell the house, you better have something from the judge in your hand saying who's making the calls. All right, I need to know, does the wife make the calls, does the husband make the calls? Do both make the calls? That's gonna
And can I say this?
mess you up.
Divorce degrees do say who's in charge of selling,
Mhm.
but who's on that title means something too, okay? That means that that person that's not selling, if their name's on that title, they still have to sign everything. And if they don't, then they'd be in contempt of court, right? But they still have to sign, even though the judge has directed the wife or whoever to sell the house or is in charge of selling.
In this particular case, if this was under contract prior to papers being served, he can't get out of that. I mean,
He can't.
not
That's
not
right.
legally,
He's
right?
stuck, just in the.
He'll be in default, yeah. It's gonna cause a
It can
problem.
screw things up big time, but
Doesn't mean he's not gonna file something and have an attorney start going up the works and slowing it down and saying you can't close until.
Yeah,
But
which is probably.
He put him in the fall,
Yeah.
if he messed it up, he would go into the fall.
Yeah, so just make sure you do that. Look at that. Here, number 4 here. You represent a seller and have a listing agreement. In the listing agreement, you write a special stipulation that states all parties agree the property may be marketed for 3 days prior to the marketing commencement date. You're fined by both the Georgia MLS and the local MLS for this. Are you gonna have to pay, yes or no?
I thought, isn't there a date underneath the marketing commencement date that you can put like the number of days there? Is that what we're talking about here or is this
No.
different? Okay, so,
that's a special step, but I mean, wouldn't you just put it in the blank?
Here's the deal, here's the deal with this one. You can't special stip the rules out. You can't special stip the law out. Has nothing to do with law, by the way, I shouldn't want to say it, but I've seen people try to special stip the law out too,
I just put it in the
you
blank.
know? Right?
You got a marketing commencement
So
date for a reason.
You've got a
Right,
marketing
that's-
commencement date for a reason. If you want to do it 3 days earlier, then bump it back 3 days.
Yeah.
You're not being cute, it doesn't look good, right? And you're gonna get fined for it when they find out. So just understand that whether it be in the purchase and sale agreement, whether it be in the listing agreement, whether it be in the buy broker agreement, you cannot special stip your way out from under rules or out from under the law or out from under the settlement for that matter. Right, okay, we'll decide how much I can make later on a buyer brokerage agreement. No. It has to be very definite from the beginning. Right?
This, you're talking about private market, like I'm just gonna let my people, my investor group know.
No, maybe just gonna throw it out there.
Well, you've got the blanks and the listing that you
Yeah, that's-
can move it up or
that's
back.
well, yeah, that's
So
what I
many
was
days.
That's right, that's the whole thing. There's nothing in there, that's zero, that's X.
Just making sure, because I've seen some faces,
Yeah.
"No, we can't, you know.
so
like,
there is a box that gives us
If
the
it-
ability to do that, not in the special steps.
Right,
In
and
this case, there was.
that's the whole thing, yeah, that's the whole thing. They set the rule breaking from the get-go, is what I'm trying to say here. Just make sure you don't do that.
That gives you an opportunity to change the marketing commencement date back or forth.
Right.
They'll give you the opportunity to start marketing it before
Prior
that
to that
marketing
date.
commencement date. Yeah, that's not what the
And
blank's for.
that's why my question was, why didn't you just put it in the
Dave, you
blank?
got a question?
I saw some prep.
Well,
Yeah.
I believe that special stip is just them trying to get a pocket listing so that they have more opportunity to get a buyer, an unrepresented buyer. Is that the way that you would read that special stip? Because it doesn't make any sense to
That's
start
how I read,
marketing.
that's how I read it. We don't take pocket listings in this office, right?
Right.
No,
Because there's no such thing as a pocket listing in Georgia.
Yeah, either you got a listing
Or you
or you
don't.
don't.
Yeah, with listings, you can't be half pregnant.
Yeah, you either got a listing or you don't. If you got a listing, you got rolled. If you know about a house that's for sale, then you just got knowledge. You don't have a listing, right? Just you know about a house that could be for sale. That's a difference. That makes sense.
What I see that kind of reflects this more than that is like in a purchase and sale agreement, if it's, the F-601, they're doing it on a contingency based on the sale. I'm seeing agents write that, all parties agree that it's still gonna be showing as active
Right.
until after due diligence or whatever. Can't do that because MLS rules stay. That's kind of the example of them kind of trying to write the rules out. The MLS rule says that the listing must reflect the actual status within 1 business day. So if you've got under contract with a kickout, you're gonna be active under contract. You're not gonna be active. So don't write that special step. That's not helping you skirt the law or the rule. It's gotta show active under contract. If you've got it under contract, you can't still market it as active. It's what if someone comes in, they see the house, now they wanna write an offer, then you go, oh, but we're actually under contract. You can put a backup offer in. They're gonna throw you under the bus quick, fast, and in a hurry. So,
In reality, that's the way to do it, but in practical purposes, it is so hard. I mean, you have to call everybody and just find out if they're under contract or not. That's a question I ask every time, because there's so many that are still showing active.
Yeah.
Irritates the crap out of me. And FMLS, there's no teeth in it. far as they're concerned.
Let's try number 5 there, David, but I think we might have to go back. Yeah, back up. Go ahead, let's do the other one. I thought we had one more in there, and I guess I took it out.
Back to number 1.
Yeah, so look, in the buyer brokerage agreement, it states you get 3% compensation. Please understand something, if you put 0 in there, if you put NA in there, how much do you get paid? I got somebody right now that they are livid because the buyer went and bought somewhere else. We're gonna fight it. I'm taking it to court. We reviewed the BBA, NA.
Wow.
And they got
Guess how much it
told.
was? Guess how much of a house it is? $1 million, $2.4 million. Let me give you the worst part. Can I give them the worst
That's
part?
not the worst part?
The buyer and the agent did a mutual termination of this brokerage engagement, right? But they put a special stip in there that listed 3 addresses. If you buy one of these addresses, you owe me my compensation.
But your compensation.
That's all it says. It says my compensation. Doesn't say nothing about how much or none of that crap. So, okay, so we go back to the buyer brokerage agreement and where it says how much you're getting paid, got an A in it. It says you get paid from the seller if the seller is offering it, ask the seller. But the buyer's not, the agent's not part of that contract where he's buying the house.
And the address is on the list.
An address on the list. And now he's mad at us,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We can't help it. And he put NA in there, not even nothing. He put NA, like it's not applicable. Like the buyer, you don't owe me anything if I can't get paid from the seller. On a $2.4 million house.
But he got what he asked for.
He got
We will guarantee NA.
Trying to think about how many times we've told people not to do that. I understand even before this time last year, we were saying the same thing in the BVA. You can't put 0 in there and expect to get it enforced. It can't happen. And we've been saying that for
We
years.
still, compliance is still seeing that every day. Agents are still putting 0 in the.
Yes, absolutely.
Are these people taking your contract class?
Some of them do, some of them don't, but what, compliance calls us every day, I said, just quit worrying about it. If they put 0 in there, eventually one of the agents is gonna get 0, just like that agent's getting 0.
They won't do it
And
again.
they'll learn that lesson, because you can't take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? And that's what we're running into, because people are still putting 0 in there. And this is my personal opinion, I don't even know if they agree with me or not, but because of this lawsuit, and there's so many rules and regulations around it, somebody sooner or later is gonna start requiring that BBA and that listing agreement to be shown to somebody that's gonna enforce what they say. So if you've got 0 in there and it happens to be your turn and they check your thing at the closing table, and it says you're not supposed to get paid, you're gonna get 0.
Well, although the first enforcement of that will not be a check, by the way. The first enforcement of that will be a lawsuit because you violated, or whoever it was, violated the terms of the settlement. And they'll be in for millions of dollars. There's not an E&O company in the country that's gonna cover it. Right? Because been told. And then when that happens, well, you got paid, but it says 0 right here, but you took a check. And then that's that. So you don't want to be that person. You know, don't be that person.
It's scary, so please, don't be afraid to tell a buyer, that's the whole purpose of this lawsuit, how much you cost. We're gonna get it from somewhere else, I hope. And if you instruct me to do that, that's what we'll ask for. But if I don't, this is how much it costs to work with me. That's all you gotta do.
We gotta know our value. I mean,
You gotta know
this
your
is
value. That's it.
fundamental.
That's it. You gotta know your value. And if you wanna work for free, that's okay too. We don't care. But I mean, I would. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Let's go to
So
number
please
5.
be careful.
Yeah, so you sent an email flyer to agents only to promote your new listing. You state it has a great view of the local lake. Is there a problem with that?
Tell us the problem. Come on, help us out.
No,
Just make something up.
well, I was gonna say because you're only sending it out to one specific group, and doesn't that go against the code of ethics as well? Would you not sending it out to everyone, you're just doing agents only? or-
Nah, you're good with that one. You can send it to agents only.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Not smart, but you know, I really put agents in that, agents only, just for fun.
Can you say the word has a view of the lake, but not great view because you're qualifying it?
Yeah, no,
That's puffing, but you're allowed to puff.
Yeah. This is nothing but a trick question because people get all sideways. This is Fair Housing Month, right? People get all sideways about certain things. And there are certain, I don't know, did y'all put the words in there?
Yeah.
Mhm, yeah,
Okay, there,
all these on the desk.
and they're on your desk, yeah. But look over those, and that list actually comes out of Oklahoma. And is one of the ones that's used more than any of the other ones because it tends to be more comprehensive and maybe a little more accurate. Understand, you'll go to classes and people will say stuff, instructors will say things that are wrong. Understand that. Okay? Understand that that happens. Not with our classes, but with classes. So Great View, there's nothing wrong with Great View.
so many questions.
There's nothing wrong with Great View, okay? Nothing wrong at all, so you can use that. There are other things you don't want to use. As you can see in that handout, they're in the red. In the yellow, you might want to qualify and be real careful about using it, it just depends. And then, the green, of course, everything's fine. Again, I bring up one that is now 30 years old, probably, about this lady who was a widow in Athens and had a garage apartments. Great apartment, female student. I mean, she was trying to control who's gonna be on her property, you know? And somebody got mad and hit her. It cost her a lot of money.
Why would some people say Great View wouldn't be allowed? What would be their reason for that?
Oh,
I think
because
that's where they're-
some people may be sight impaired, therefore you're overlooking them.
Oh
Just
my
subjective.
God.
I got that, overlooking them? So, anyway, yeah, so, no, but some of it, you know, and that's what they say, just goes, oh, well, you can't talk about this, can't talk about this disability, whatever. It's not necessarily true. You gotta watch the exclusion stuff of people with disabilities. That's what you gotta be careful of. So, anyway, don't worry about that. A buyer tells you that he and his family need to live within walking distance of a particular synagogue. Can you help him find homes given the religious restriction of the search?
Synagogue.
They're asking you, I need to be within a mile, is that what I put, well, walking distance, of this particular synagogue. I need to be here. To use this,
That would be okay, wouldn't it?
You do 1 mile.
There you go. That's what we're looking for.
Physical address.
Because they're not,
Who said the buyer? Yeah, that's it. It's because the buyer instructed you.
right.
Right? That's
So
what
if you
makes
did it without their knowledge, then it's redlining.
It's right.
right,
Okay.
So because they instructed you, that makes it.
That's why I was looking at that.
That makes
and
it-
understand, that's not a subjective search, by the way. Right? It's factual right down.
It's very
the line.
clear, yeah.
Right down the line. I need to be where good schools are. Now you're in trouble.
So do you have a problem with what's walking distance? Somebody
I
can
don't have any
raise hell
problem
with
at all.
that?
There's
Like,
nothing wrong with it.
if somebody's in a wheelchair,
There's nothing wrong with that.
they got a wheel down there?
Because remember, remember this too, you're not advertising anything.
Right.
You know, somebody asked you. Now, can people come up and ask you to show them certain things and it not be a good idea?
Sure.
You to show those?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So be careful, but this is just one of the more common ones and there's nothing wrong with it. It's like,
This particular,
yeah, what's good school? That's right. Somebody says, we need to be where good schools are. Well, I tell you what, you go find a good school, you let me know which one you're looking at, and we'll find you a place near that.
You don't have an opinion.
That information is so available. It's easy for them to pull it up.
And I read an article the other day too, was it an article or was it in that class? God, which one was it? Where the school, no, it wasn't that class, because the schools, they got, apparently there are a few reports out there that show schools. And this particular school had a low score, but what they didn't show was the fact that, you know, one of the things was people on reduced lunches or something that brought the score down, but the school was actually an excellent school. But certain criteria sunk it. That had nothing to do with anything having to do with learning, let's put it that way. So,
now the question with this is the buyer was obviously an Orthodox Jew and wanted to be able to walk to a synagogue with a reasonable amount of distance. If that buyer had said, hey, just show me homes that are in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood, would that be different?
That's fair house.
Very different.
That becomes a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he was speaking about the home, not the neighborhood, the people. So you gotta be careful, but
7.
You receive a call from someone who wants to purchase space for an Indian restaurant. Can you help with this narrowly defined purchase?
Why a restaurant?
There we go, you're about to say it, go ahead, wait a minute, go ahead and spit it out, because you're fixing to say the right thing.
I thought. Train of thought.
Well, you single it out, at the group.
Well,
All right, I'm gonna stop.
You can find,
Let's stop there. Anybody else wanna say something?
Restaurant.
What?
A restaurant's a restaurant.
There you go, a restaurant, this has nothing to do with Fair House.
Right. Restaurant.
what they serve in that restaurant, he wants a restaurant space. That's what you find.
Doesn't matter what they're
You
serving.
put menu, whatever you want on it.
But I'd still get a BBA first.
That's it.
Yeah,
Do that for you.
exactly. But yeah, understand that, it's a restaurant, it's not housing. Don't do it.
This one says you own a rental duplex. A gentleman in a wheelchair views it and likes the available unit. He asks if he can install a rail in the bathtub to assist him with getting in and out of the shower. He says he will do this at his cost and he will repair it to look like it does now when he moves out. You do not want the tub altered. Is there a problem with you saying no?
Yes.
An ADA problem?
If he's doing it at his cost and repairing it, you
Yeah.
can't say no.
There's the big thing, remember, if they're altering at their cost and willing to put it back at their cost. That's the end of the game right there.
And you can have that escrowed as part of a security deposit.
They'll do it. But here's what gets me, if somebody went, I need to put 3 old doors throughout the house. At your cost, get on it.
Put some granite countertops in too.
You know?
Just don't take them with you when you go.
Go ahead, yeah, once you put it in, it's staying.
Yeah, so just understand that, a lot of people will go that. All right, last 2. You represent a buyer purchasing a home with a septic system. The buyer will pay for an inspection and will choose a septic company to perform the inspection. Is this the best way to do this if the buyer requests a septic inspection? Yes or no?
I would think so.
Most septic companies require the seller to sign off on something for them to do that. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, the seller will have to give permission, but I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm representing a buyer and they want an inspection, I would say yes.
I will tell you that it is best practice by far. If the buyer wants a septic inspection, put in a special stipulation that the seller will do the septic inspection and have it done and provide whatever. Whatever receipt or whatever invoice, whatever you want, that's fine, depending on how detailed you want it to be. You'd be surprised how many times we get these complaints because the buyer went over and they tore up the yard. Oh, it's not like it was.
You can't never put a yard back like it was.
No,
Once you
that's
set it
a
up.
fact.
You
So
all know
most of the
that, right?
companies, she's right. Most of the companies will not even step foot on that yard until the seller gives, I understand exactly why you're saying that, because that makes sense.
What happens if a buyer's inspection company opens up the lid and sees there's a whole bunch of something wrong with it? And it's broke now and it won't work. What's that seller gonna do? They're gonna be furious, right?
Good idea.
And who they gonna call?
You.
Us.
Yeah, so that's just something you recommend getting
I
that
would always
receipt
have
and
the
letting the buyer
buyer-
pay for it later, but
Whatever,
Seller.
but ask for it up front if that's something your buyer's interested in.
Yeah.
Just like this is another pet peeve of mine, heating and air conditioning service. Why am I gonna service the heating and air conditioning if I'm selling my house? If you wanted it done, why would you ask me during my inspection? Oh, the inspector found out it's 15 years old, have it serviced. Why wouldn't you ask me that up front if you were worried about having it serviced? Why are you gonna wait till during due diligence to ask me to get it serviced?
I mean, sometimes you don't know that though.
You knew it was 15 years old when you wrote that contract.
Well,
That's
as long as
my
they
point.
did the seller's disclosure, you do.
There you go.
Yes.
But if I had a buyer, definitely.
Good point.
But it's just, I think if you want something like that done, ask for that up front. Don't wait to due diligence. Due diligence is for you to find stuff that you didn't know about or the seller didn't know about or something that's wrong with the house.
Yeah.
My heating and air is working fine.
Right.
You just want me to service it. That don't make no sense.
Everybody's too worried about getting their contract accepted.
That's it, yes.
As the seller, can you, as part of the permission to allow it to be inspected, require them to give you a copy of the inspection report?
Or the septic tank, you
You
could.
could, in a counter offer or whatever, yeah, absolutely.
And for it.
And just so you know too, if you ask or if you have a buyer and you say, hey, we want to make sure, you know, we want a septic inspection that's in good working order, you know what they're gonna do, right? They're gonna walk out, they're gonna walk right down through here, go right down the field lines, come back, come all the way back to the house. They're gonna stop, he's gonna go, shoes are dry, septic system is good.
That's an inspection.
That's an inspection. Understand that. A lot of people think pumping it is an inspection. No. People think looking inside it is an inspection. No.
You call a septic tank company that makes a living pumping septic tanks.
Right.
That's what they're gonna tell
They're
you.
gonna come over and
They're gonna
take the lid
say it needs to be
off.
pumped. Yeah. And when they take the lid off, they're gonna break the baffle, $250 to replace the baffle. Yep.
Does that apply to a VA loan? Because those are required. How does that say?
All they care is something
That you have
saying
an
that it
inspection
works.
clearance letter.
And guess what?
Not that it's been pumped.
That's
It's
what it's
not
gonna
leaking,
be.
it works.
Yep, all they're doing is looking for water. I mean, seriously. That's all they're looking for.
Okay.
So, all right, here you go. You and your significant other own a rental home. You keep deposits and rents in a joint business account. Is there a problem with this? And if so, what's the solution?
Yes.
Yes, there is a problem. The solution.
Keep in escrow account,
Mm-hmm,
separate.
mm-hmm.
The solution is let your spouse own it, not you.
Yeah, there are all kind of problems with this one, actually.
No, we talked to you about this one before, and we said, so
Yeah.
it's all on you.
There's a couple of things there. Number one, you have a license, okay? So if you own a home, you own the deed, if you're a member of the LLC with another person, then it's got to be in a broker's trust account. Period. Now, you can have your own brokerage with a trust account, that works. But if there are two people there, it's got to go to broker's trust. And we also say the rent should go through that first, because we've had some, G-Rex said this, then G-Rex said this, you know? So we think it's the best practice. I don't think you're required to have those rents go through, but it might be smart. Does that make
If you're
sense?
husband and wife, you're probably okay. But
Yeah,
like if me and Henry own a piece of property together,
yeah.
that's two separate people, two separate monies. So it's safer to put that money in an escrow account,
And
and
just
then
let
the
it
escrow
run
account
through.
pays me my half and then pays him his half.
And you can disperse it immediately. I mean, that's
It doesn't
fine.
have to stay in there, that
Yeah.
just flows through there.
But then how do you solve this? Well, if you and this significant other, and that significant other is unlicensed, if you put everything in the significant other's name, the deed and all, takes care of the problem.
You gotta follow the rules.
You don't have to follow any rules then.
Does that change at all with different entities like LLC, trust,
No,
that kind of stuff? Okay.
it's the number of people involved.
Okay. got it.
Yeah, that's the way they
If you're a
look.
member of that trust or a member of that LLC, it still,
Yeah.
it still
Okay.
counts.
Cool.
That's it. Y'all got any questions? We right at 12 o'clock. Any questions? Any concerns?
Thank you guys for doing this.
Y'all don't have any questions, are you sure? Got all three in the room, I'm like.
One of mine is, one of mine. I'm just.
I don't think none of those came from this
When's the
office.
next contract?
We got one on Thursday, the 24th, I believe.
Yep, 10 o'clock, yeah, 24th.
We had a license law class scheduled for the 8th. We just found out that's red. So
Yeah,
we were trying to move it to the 15th.
Okay.
If y'all need license law, we're gonna try to do one on the 15th.
on Zoom only.
On Zoom,
Okay.
10 to 1. like
10 to 1, like
You got any
it
more contract classes scheduled again?
Not after the one in April till, we probably won't have any more
Till
till
June.
June, till the new law, till the new stuff comes out.
Mhm. The updates.
Cool.
Yeah.
And-
All right, guys, thank you so much.